2012 marks the 100th anniversary of the incorporation of the City of Sault Ste. Marie, and whereas City Council is proud to host a year-long community celebration known as Celebrate 100, and whereas on this special day, Sault Ste. Marie reaches a historic milestone celebrating its 100th birthday. Be it known that today, Monday, April the 16th, 2012, is now proclaimed to be our city's 100th birthday. Happy birthday, Sault Ste. Marie. We are going to have a good time. God save the Queen.
Whereas on April 16, 1912, an act to incorporate the city of Sault Ste. Marie was passed by His Majesty King George V and the Legislative Assembly of the Province of Ontario, and whereas the said act stated in part that as the town now has a population of over 11,000 inhabitants and is rapidly increasing, and by reason of its geographical position and numerous industries established there, the said town is now and will continue to be an important commercial and manufacturing center. And whereas a century later in 2012, the city indeed remains an important commercial and industrial center with a vibrant cultural mix of over 75,000 residents. And whereas to commemorate the 100th anniversary, City Council is proud to host Celebrate 100 Civic Anniversary Week and invites all residents to the Civic Center public open house on August 17, 18, and 19 between 10 a.m. and 2 p.m. This is an opportunity for us to share a look back at where we have been as a city and to look forward as we move into the future. Now, therefore, I, Debbie Amoroso, by virtue of the power vested in me as Mayor of the City of Sault Ste. Marie, now proclaim April 16th to the 20th, 2012 to be Celebrate 100 Civic Anniversary Week in the City of Sault Ste. Marie. Happy 100th birthday, Sault Ste. Marie.
Madam Mayor and members of council, we're now pleased to have a video presentation from the Sault Ste. Marie Museum celebrating 100 years.
Madam Mayor and members of council, thank you for inviting the museum to take part in this celebration. Before we begin the video, I'd like to take you back for a moment just to a little bit of history beginning in March of 1912. That is when the city actually sent their petition and their letter of request to the Legislative Assembly to become a city. On April the 11th, Mayor Monroe left the city by train to travel to Toronto. He was met by our MPP of the day, William Howard Hearst, to attend the Assembly for the reading in the Private Bills Committee in the Legislature to incorporate the city of Sault Ste. Marie on Friday, April the 12th. This was done and the mayor returned to the city. Hopefully that there was going to be a bit of a celebration and to announce the city becoming a city at that time. Unfortunately, on the 15th, as everyone knows, the world awoke to the biggest disaster that has happened in the world at that time, the sinking of the SS Titanic. The following day, however, council did convene and they approved and assented to the incorporation of the city of Sault Ste. Marie. We'd like to take you back for just a snapshot of what life was like in the city in 1912.
if we tilt the microphone, there's no speakers.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. Okay, that makes sense.
Good evening, Madam Mayor and members of council, city staff, and citizens of Sault Ste. Marie, and those of you viewing these proceedings on television. My name is Charles J. Pym, and I've been fortunate enough to have been transported here today through time to be present at the 100th anniversary meeting of the incorporation of the city of Sault Ste. Marie. Now, I was the city clerk, the town clerk at first, and then after 1912, the city clerk of this fine community where when the provincial government at the time had the good grace to pass an act to incorporate the city of Sault Ste. Marie. I was born in Owen Sound in 1854, and I moved to the Sault as a young boy. I attended the first public school up at the corner of Wellington and Pym. I attended that public school. My principal was the teacher was William Turner, and I've been accused of not learning how to write very neatly by my teachers. Others have said that I'm not a very neat writer. You try working one of these, Mr. White. Computers. Now, after growing up in Sault Ste. Marie, I worked in several places. I clerked for the J.C. Phipps store at the corner of Queen and Pym. And then I think I might have actually been in one of those photos. I was the manager for W.H. Plummer at his store and dock. And that was back when your dock, the government dock, was wooden. Wasn't concrete yet. I was very popular in the fishing business. I did very well. I was known on both sides, up and down the coast of the river and the lake, and both Superior and Huron. Yeah, that one. I ran the fishing business, and then I also worked at Michipicoten for Mr. Plummer when he had his store up there while they were connecting the CPR railway. Do you still use that train much? It's a little joke, Mr. Sheehan. That one looks familiar. Were you around back in 1912? Still wearing the same suit. So am I. They knew how to make clothes back in our day, didn't they, Mr. Manzo? Oh, what else? Well, I lived at Canadian Neebush for a while, and I sold wood to the vessels, did very well there, and I was a lighthouse keeper for 12 years. I would go off and be dropped off at the lighthouse at Caribou Island in the spring, and then they'd come back and get me in the fall. Somehow I managed to father 12 children. I guess the winters were long in Sault Ste. Marie. In 1901, I was appointed the town clerk, and I lived actually just on Brock, south of Queen, right around the corner from here. And then, of course, I was still the city clerk in 1912 when we became a city, and unfortunately, I died 2 years later. The excitement was just too much for me, apparently. Interesting how some things haven't changed over the years. I still have my little inkwell, and I still have my bowler hat, and even the faces haven't changed. Why, I look at Charles McRae, who was the city treasurer when I was the city clerk, and he looks somewhat like your Mr. Butland, I think. Did you see that? I showed that to Mr. Butland, and his remark was, "What a handsome fellow." Oh, here's someone that might interest all of you at this time right now. Where did he go? He's the, oh, I've lost this. It was the tax collector. I thought you might like to see this picture. There was a picture of the tax collector, and I thought, isn't that interesting? You could just see behind his eyes, he was thinking, I hope we keep it down below 3%. I don't know where, seriously, I don't know where it went. Apparently, I'm not very good at my job. All right, so, who else? This was my assistant. He wasn't very quick. I'm glad there weren't a lot of stairs in City Hall at the time. And then here is the medical officer of health. Somewhat younger than your Dr. Alan Norman, isn't he? Don't tell him I said that. All right, now, something else that hasn't changed much. I see that they're still up to their old tricks, all these city councilors, and they're signing inside the drawers, whatever they say. Here we go. Mr. Manzo, you're in here. That's quite a lot. And in the shape of a pizza slice. Isn't that something? Have you seen that? All the way back. That goes all the way back. I see one in there from 1948. My goodness. And the times, they aren't a-changing. Would you excuse me for a moment, Mr. Turco? Slide back, please.
I can leave.
Yeah, no, just sit right there. I'm going to show them that you boys are still up to your... Oh, this drawer doesn't come out.
That's right.
They're doing it again.
It's on purpose.
It's on purpose. Now, you haven't signed this one. This one says
yet.
Frank Manzo again.
I
Have you? Where haven't you sat? All right. At any rate, let's move things along, shall we? This has been great fun to reminisce with all of you. So nice to see what a wonderful turnout for this momentous occasion. And now, I would like to introduce, I can't believe I'm going to say this, Madam Mayor. A woman mayor. See, next thing you know, they're going to give them the vote. It is my great pleasure to introduce Madam Mayor, who along with her council will tell us about some of the highlights from the past 100 years. And like any good clerk, I will be introducing each time period to help you keep on track. Madam Mayor.
Thank you, Mr. Pym. I was concerned that he would have a dialogue. Good afternoon and welcome, everyone. I'm honored to participate in this historic anniversary meeting. We are here to celebrate our past, commemorate our great accomplishments, and look to a bright future. Today in the audience, I would like to acknowledge our federal member of parliament, Brian Hayes. Thank you, Brian, for being here with us today. I was asked, unusually, to talk to the topic of the women's vote as it has progressed over the last 100 years. As I stand here before you today as mayor, it is hard to believe that over 100 years ago, unless I had owned property, I most likely would have not been able to vote in a municipal election, let alone be afforded the opportunity to sit on council or to run for mayor. Since I am a woman, how things have changed. By the early 1900s, most women who owned property had the right to vote in municipal elections, and women could vote in some provincial elections, but not all of them. Canadian women won the right to vote federally in 1918 when an act to confer the electoral franchise upon women was enacted. Prior to that time, women that were serving in the forces and female relatives of men serving in the forces could vote under the Military Voters Act of 1917. In 1921, the federal election was called, and women were urged to get out and vote. According to that article, published in 1979 by the Sault Star in a column by the Rapids, a glance back by Linda Richardson, it states that exactly how many women voted in the 1921 election is not known, but when the ballots were tallied in Sault Ste. Marie, there were about 3,000 more votes cast than in 1917. The increase could be due to a number of factors, but one thing is for sure, women did start voting and took it seriously. At this time, please allow me to cite some historical data from 1912. 100 years ago, a quart of milk cost 9 cents, a loaf of bread 5 cents, steak was 23 cents a pound, sugar 7 cents per pound. As you saw in our clip, oh, that's not yet. I'll tell you about the clip in a minute. The Sault Star carried an advertisement for a quick lunch at the Parisian Cafe for 30 cents. Dancers took up the turkey trot for the first two-reel movie debuted. Electric cars were all the rage, and fashionable women wore long hobbled skirts and elaborate hats, as you saw in Councillor Myers earlier today. The news was filled with accounts of the race to the South Pole, sadly the sinking of the Titanic, and the Summer Olympics complete with women swimming. On April 16, 1912, an act is passed by His Majesty King George V and the Legislative Assembly of the Province of Ontario, incorporating the town of Sault Ste. Marie into the city of Sault Ste. Marie. Sir Robert Laird Borden was Prime Minister of Canada. Sir James Whitney is the Premier of Ontario. Population is 13,502, and W.H. Monroe is mayor. Members of City Council: John G. Blaine, who was a druggist; George A. Boyd, steamboat ticket agent, who went on to become mayor in 1919; Francis E. Crawford, who was in real estate and the insurance field, who went on to become mayor in 1917; Paul Everett, manager of Pearl Laundry; John A. McPhail, barrister, who will become mayor in 1915 to 1916; and Harry Sargent, who is a lumberman. Also in 1912, at 2:27 a.m. on April 15th, the day prior to enactment of the legislation to make Sault Ste. Marie a city, the so-called unsinkable Titanic does in fact sink off the coast of Newfoundland. The Orpheum Theatre opens on April 15th. 4 other theaters already provide live entertainment: Gaiety at 551 Queen Street, the Opera House at 605 Bay and Brock Streets, and the Bijou and Lyceum on Brock Street. Door-to-door mail delivery begins in Sault Ste. Marie with 8 letter carriers. The Salvation Army Citadel is built on Spring Street. Algoma Steel Corporation Limited is created by the merger of Algoma Steel Company Limited, the Algoma Iron Works, the Lake Superior Power Company, the Cannleton Coal and Coke Company, and the Fibron Limestone Company with Lake Superior Iron and Steel Company. The Dominion building housing the post office is completed and is now the home of the Sault Ste. Marie Museum. Lake Superior Power Company builds a newsprint mill, and the Sioux Daily publication, as you saw, began and the paper is renamed the Sioux Daily Star. James Lyons opens Lyons Fuel and Supplies Company. Well, you know, it's probably dead now, so. The Governor General of Canada visits Sault Ste. Marie on August 29th, 1912. On September 23rd, the city annexes parts of the township of Terran-Taurus, Moffley subdivision, which was 102 acres. Marconi Society is established. Children's Aid Society buys children's shelters, and that was subsequently closed in 1955. The second Gowan Street Arena was built. The first apartment building in the city, Terra Hall Apartments, is built by O'Boyle Construction Company for its employees who were hired to build dry docks. 5,260 immigrants entered Canada at Sault Ste. Marie between January 1st and November 30th, 1912.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. We'll move forward now to 1913 and 1914, while T.E. Simpson is the mayor of Sault Ste. Marie. The population is 13,117 people. Councillor Butland.
Thank you. 1913, the suffragettes demonstrate in London, England. Henry Ford develops the first moving assembly line. The ACR station and offices open at the foot of Bruce Street. The corner section of Windsor Hotel is constructed. Andrew Virene establishes a store on Gore Street. Construction of the Barnes and Fawcett building at the corner of Gore and Queen Streets commenced in 1913 at a cost of $8,500, founded by Theron T. Barnes. Newly built YMCA opens on March Street. 1914 marks the beginning of World War I. The Panama Canal opens after 10 years of construction. Toronto Blue Shirts, that's not the Maple Leafs, win the Stanley Cup. William Howard Hearst, who practiced law in Sault Ste. Marie, becomes the Premier of Ontario. The Queen Street Jail closes. New jail opens on McNabb Street. The main line of Algoma Central and Hudson's Bay Railroad is completed to Hearst. Herbert Rosevier Lash opens H.R. Lash Boots and Shoes and Gents Furnishings, and still prospers. Hugo Stangetta opens International Hotel and Tavern. Tagona Water and Light Company water and lighting franchises, secured by Clerg in 1894, expire. The company's property is sold to the city. 1915-16, J.A. McPhail is the mayor. Albert Einstein completes his mathematical formulation of a general theory of relativity, which includes gravity. Lou Turco, the Montreal Canadiens win the Stanley Cup. The International Hotel and Tavern burns on January the 10th. Andrew McKay, first reeve, a village of Sault Ste. Marie, dies in Tenino, Washington on October 16th. Algoma Steel Corporation divests itself of interest in water power lands and rights and in the assets of the International Transit Company. The contract of sale is assigned to a new company, the Great Lakes Power Limited. 1917, F.E. Crawford is mayor. The Dutch dancer Mata Hari is convicted and executed as a German spy. The Romanovs' Winter Palace is stormed in the Russian October Revolution. The common labor rate at Algoma Steel Corporation goes up to 26.5 cents per hour. The Royal Victoria Hospital opens in a converted Albert Street house. Until now, the General Hospital had been the only hospital, having been established in 1908 by the Ottawa-based Sisters of the Cross. The Duchess Theatre opens at 509 Queen Street, the Princess Theatre at 163 Gore Street. On November 24th, the Ontario Railway and Municipal Board order provides for the amalgamation of the city of Sault Ste. Marie and the town of Steelton. Population swells to 21,500. 1918, Thomas Dean is mayor. Women are given the right to vote federally. Worldwide Spanish influenza epidemic strikes. By 1920, nearly 20 million are dead. 4 members of the group of 7 come to the Soo and go to Agua Canyon via the Algoma Central Railway, where they stay in a boxcar and paint. Adolfo Spadoni opens James Street Furniture. I think the son is somewhere up in the gallery. Welcome, Alan. Girl Guides are organized in the city. Joseph LaPlante opens Fauche's Cleaners. The Rotary Club holds its first meeting and dinner June 15th at the YMCA. On November the 11th, 1918, an armistice is reached to end World War I. Sergeant William Merrifield is awarded the Victoria Cross, one of only 94 Canadians to receive one. At the Battle of Cambrai in France, he made a one-man charge on two enemy machine gun emplacements that were pinning down his platoon. And add on that Kim gave me, in 1918, Mayor Monroe, previous Mayor Monroe, became an alderman. On January 17th, he went missing. His body was found and it was the first and only funeral ceremony to be held at City Hall. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Butland. Just one little point of order. Adolfo Spadoni was actually Alan Spadoni's grandfather. Alfio was his father, who then took over the business, right? See how much I know for a dead guy? All right, so. Good clerking, yes. Let's move forward now to 1919, when the mayor is George A. Boyd, and the population of the city of Sault Ste. Marie is now 23,500 strong. Councillor Watkins.
Indeed, sir. Ernest C. Drury is the Premier of Ontario. Royal Victoria Hospital reopens at the Plummer House, Lyndhurst, as the Plummer Memorial Public Hospital. The hospital has 35 beds. Sault Ste. Marie Traction Company takes over operation of the street railway. Joseph LeMay opens LeMay's Furniture. His Royal Highness the Prince of Wales visits on September 4th. The first courthouse is demolished. Excavation and building of the basement walls for the present courthouse begins. The Griffin Theatre opens on the south side of Queen Street at the corner of Dennis. Members of the group of 7, I'm assuming all 7 this time, return to the Sioux area to paint in the fall. The Norrie family opens City Meat Market. In 1920-1921, Thomas Farquhar is mayor. Our population is 23,500. Arthur Meighen is the Prime Minister of Canada. The then Ottawa Senators win the Stanley Cup in 1920 and again in 1921. Joseph Rossi opens Rossi's Bakery. James Pilling opens Algoma Bakery. Isaac Davis opens Davis Clothing Store. Sault Ste. Marie Country Club opens. W.C. Franz is president. Elmer W. Best, vice president. Edgar T. Reed is secretary-treasurer. Albert and Fred Barrell open Olympia Barbershop. 75% of the people in Algoma are Canadian-born. Sault Technical High School is built, and Sault High School becomes the Sault Collegiate Institute. Doric chapter of the Eastern Star is established. Sault Ste. Marie branch of Daughters and Maids of England is founded. Edwards Hardware opens, and Agnes MacPhail is the first woman to be elected to the House of Commons. From 1922 to 1925, James Dawson is mayor. William Lyon Mackenzie King is the Prime Minister of Canada. Insulin is isolated and used for the treatment of diabetes. Oh boy. The Toronto St. Patrick's, not the Maple Leafs, win the Stanley Cup. Fire Hall is relocated from City Hall and opened at Wellington and Bruce Streets. Sir James Dunn is created a baronet in recognition of his war service to the British government. Sault Commercial and Technical High School opens. Construction of the present courthouse is now complete. Algoma Theatre opens its doors at 662 and 664 Queen Street East. The first Community Day, September 22nd, 1922, the Sea Cadets, now known as our Royal Sovereign Sea Cadets, led a parade of 3,000 people. Unstated here, and little known fact, is it was the first Rotary float to be entered into the parade, and it was drawn by the Sea Cadets, led by Walter Thomas Joseph Bill Newman. Proceeds used to purchase a car for the public health nurse was known as the baby's car. In 1923, George Ferguson is the Premier of Ontario. The new Princess Theatre opens. There's a monument erected at the corner of Gore and Wellington in honor of our war dead. Francis H. Clerg lays a cornerstone for a cenotaph at the courthouse. The home of Colonel John Prince, Bellevue Lodge at Bellevue Park, is torn down. Our armory moves to the east side of Brock Street, north of Queen Street. The officers' mess moves to the northeast corner of Brock and Wellington. Angus Grant opens tobacco and confectionery store at the southwest corner of Queen and East Streets. In 1924, Walt Disney creates his first cartoon, Alice's Wonderland. And the dedication of our new cenotaph in front of the courthouse on Queen Street occurred on September 2nd, 1924, with the names of World War I veterans are inscribed. And the Greyhounds win the Allen Cup. Thank you, sir.
Thank you, Councillor Watkins. Let's move forward now. 1926 through 1929. Thomas J. Irwin is mayor. His great-nephew, Ron, would become mayor in 1972, and his great-great-nephew, Brady, a councillor in 1997. The population is 22,750. Councillor Manzo.
Thank you very much, old man Pim. In 1926, Richard E. Byrd and Floyd Bennett fly from Spitsbergen to the North Pole and back. Arthur Meighen is Prime Minister of Canada, June 29, 26 to September 25th, 1926, at which point William Lyon Mackenzie King again became Prime Minister. And William Lyon Mackenzie King was a good friend of my father's. Now, my father's been here since 1892, and my grandfather's been here since 1876. Antifreeze was always allowed to use in cars year-round. The G. Verde Lodge was incorporated, also the Sons of Italy Hall at the same time. The ferry Algamain begins to operate between Sault Ste. Marie, Ontario, and Sault Ste. Marie, Michigan. And Sault Ste. Marie, Michigan, one time before 1522, there was no such thing as Sault Ste. Marie, Michigan, or Sault Ste. Marie, Ontario. It was all one city one time. And then when the wars broke out, they split because of the river. They split, it made one side Michigan and one side Sault Ste. Marie, Ontario. But as known, they're always been known as twin cities. And Willard Thayer opens Hiawatha Lodge. 1927, Frank Cappy opens Cappy's Queen Street. That's the year I was born. I was born on the 25th this month. I'll be 85 years old. And still I got a brain of a 22-year-old. And Cappy's, when Cappy's opened that restaurant, and the Woman Theater was next door, and they said, Frank Cappy used to say, "Where are we going after the show?" Cappy's, of course. There you go. In 1928, Alexander Fleming discovers penicillin. August the 1st, Abitibi Power Paper takes over the Spanish River pulp paper mills. That was what's called one time. And there's still a Spanish River paper mill, I believe, in Kapuskasing. I've been there many times. 1929, the construction of Plummer Hospital completed, and the fire destroys Cappy Squirrel. The stock market crashes. SS Cressy opens a business in the old Shear block, and the store is still there yet. 1930 to 31, John McClarty is mayor, and population was 23,779. Richard Bedford Bennett was the Prime Minister of Canada. I think some of you may know we used to call it the Little Red Wagon. What was that for? Relief. George Henry is Premier of Ontario. The Montreal Canadiens win the Stanley Cup in 1930 and 31. That's Lou. Queen's Hotel is Lower Pim Street is torn down. 1931-32, Elizabeth Wilcox building is constructed in the Art Deco style. It's still there, the building. Wilfred McDonald opens Mac's store in Queen Street. I think that store is closed now. 1931, 25% of the population of 23,480 is on relief, thanks to the Bennett government. Alteration is completed in the Oklahoma Steel Corporation rail mill, but lack of orders leads to closure. The high-rise part of Windsor Hotel was constructed back in 1931. 1932 and 34, James Lyons is mayor. Population is 23,504. 1932, Amelia Earhart was the first woman to fly Atlantic solo. The Toronto Maple Leafs win the Stanley Cup. Blue. Algoma Steel Corporation goes back into receivership in June of 1932. Boston Motors begins business on Spring Street. Andrew Ferguson, Fergie Boston proprietor. Now, Fergie Boston
worked for Lynch Motor Sales as a salesman before he bought the business from Lynch's, and it was on Spring Street. The first Lynch's garage was on next to the Tim Hortons there on Bay Street, and it was known many times. It was known as different names, Eddie and Ron's and all. And that was the first Lynch store. They used to repair Model Ts and Model A's there, and I worked in there. 1934, Mitchell Hepburn was the Prime Minister of Ontario. He's the one that grew all the onions. Yeah, he had a farm growing onions. Diane Quinteplitz was born outside Callander, Ontario. Sault Ste. Marie first local radio station, CJIC, begins in operation October 15, 1934, and that was Grant Highland. Grant Highland well. New company, Algoma Steel Incorporated Limited, 1924, was incorporated at Clerk's home. The Mount Framer, destroyed by fire, on mysterious fire on October the 20th. It's been vacant for several years and began at 7:25 p.m. and by 10:40 the home was destroyed. Fire could be seen for 15 miles. The concept of an automobile bridge between U.S. and Canada is developed. Soon there between operation. Now, I'll go back to the one of Francis Clerk's mansion. See, this was up on Clerk Hill. I don't know if anybody knew where that was for years.
Elm Street now, I believe it's called.
Eh? Yeah,
Elm Street.
That's right.
Yes.
But you could see that when the building burned, there was 5 chimneys still there, sitting there, and everybody's going to take pictures. And when Francis Clerk had that mansion, they called it Francis Clerk's mansion, and he had horses, he had barn there and everything. My dad used to sell him hay for his horses. That goes quite a ways too, a long time. But 1934, I remember that building burnt. I could see it from my dad's house, that the house my dad built in 1912 at 160 Goldie's Avenue, and it's still there. And I watched that fire go when I was just a young lad. I seen it burning. But anyway, there's a lot of other history that I know here in Sault Ste. Marie, but I can out all these others here because I know, because I'll tell you why, because on April the 25th, this April the 25th, I'll be 85-year-old young. I'm not old, I'm young. I still, anyway. Thank you very much, Mr. Pym.
Thank you, Councillor Manzo. The lovely fireside chat, wasn't it? I think we should have a chair for you in the museum, and you should just sit there, people can just come by and you can tell us our stories. Your name's in that for too. Well, thank you again, Councillor Manzo. That was very informative and entertaining. And now we'll move on to 1935 and 1936, when R.M. McMeekin is the mayor of Sault Ste. Marie. Our population's 23,387. Councillor Myers, and I must say that your hat earlier on was lovely. Perhaps we could go out later on and go for a walk on the boardwalk together.
Thank you, Mr. Pym, but we both have hat heads and we don't want to take them off, do we? Thank you, Mr. Pym, for letting me follow Councillor Manzo as well. It is 1935, and Sir James Dunn arrives in the Sault and takes control of Algoma Steel. He's 60 years old, and he will guide the company until his death 21 years later. The DuPont chemist Wallace Hume Crothers creates nylon, the first completely synthetic fabric. Councillor Christian, I'll say nothing about the pants you were going to wear that were made out of this fabric. William Lyon Mackenzie King is again the Prime Minister of Canada, and the Montreal Maroons win the Stanley Cup. In May, the property and assets of Algoma Steel Company, 1907, were vested in Algoma Steel Corporation in 1934. The new company did not assume the old liabilities, and by October, the payroll was 2,200. And the Royal Canadian Legion Drum and Trumpet Band is established. All members are veterans of World War I. It's 1936, and King George V dies. King Edward VIII, now king, abdicates and marries Wallis Simpson. The average hourly Algoma Steel Corporation wage rate is 45.5 cents. And the surveys show a total of 17 different languages are spoken in the city. It's 1937 now, and through to 1945, W.J. McMeekin is mayor. In 1946, he becomes the finance commissioner, and in 1962, city administrator. And the population in 1937 is 23,853. F.H. Clerg returns to Sault Ste. Marie to attend a testimonial banquet. He's 80 years old. The banquet on February 15th, at the banquet on February 15th, a portrait of him, which now hangs in City Hall, was unveiled. King George VI becomes the King of England, and his coronation takes place on May 12th. A young man named Bruce Smith was voted by the faculty as the best student to represent Sault Collegiate at the coronation of King George VI. And under the generous sponsorship of J.C. Pinch, he left for England on April 24th and went from Sault Ste. Marie to Montreal, then boarded the SS Montcalm in Quebec City for England. Arriving on May 6th, he returned to the Sault on August 5th after visiting France and Scotland. The average hourly Algoma Steel Corporation wage is 48 cents. Attilio Orizzetti opens Orizzetti Furniture. It's 1938, and our population is 23,908. Orson Welles broadcasts his adaptation of H.G. Wells' War of the Worlds, creating a nationwide panic as listeners believe that aliens have landed in New Jersey. Rotary constructed the Welcome Arch on Brock Street. It's 1939, and our population is 24,368. War was declared September 3rd by Britain, and Canada joins the struggle with the British on September 10th. That same year, in 1939, King George V and Queen Elizabeth visit Canada. And Francis H. Clerg dies in Montreal on January 19th at the age of 82. It's 1940, and our population is 25,410. Winston Churchill becomes Britain's Prime Minister. And the Robert Simpson Company opens a store at 374-76 Queen Street, which is about where Fabricland is located now. I hate it when I look at you, Madam Mayor, see you nodding your head because we're the same age. It's 1941, and the population is 26,224. And Wince and Lee Lyons open the Girl in Red restaurant. ITCO, a company associated with the city's principal industrial corporations of the time, Lake Superior Power Company, Algoma Steel Corporation, Great Lakes Power Company, and its successor, Great Lakes Power Company Limited, provided public transportation in the form of a streetcar service from 1903 to 1941. A reliable transportation service is necessary for efficient steelworks operations when labor was at a premium due to World War II. Algoma Steel Corporation purchases the International Transit Company, obtains a bus franchise agreement with the city, and begins to run Ford buses. It's 1942, and the population is 27,537. Gordon Conn is the Premier of Ontario. Now wait for it. The Toronto Maple Leafs win the Stanley Cup. That was 1942. RCA Victor sprays gold over Glenn Miller's million-copy seller Chattanooga Choo Choo, creating the first gold record. And the last day of streetcar service in Sault Ste. Marie is October 31st, 1942. It's 1943, and Harry Nixon is Premier of Ontario from May 18 to August 17, 1943, at which point he is succeeded by George Drew. Also in 1943, the Dion Quints visit the Sioux, but they remain on the train. In 1945, the population is 28,737. The Fort Creek floods Wellington and John Streets. And World War II ends in victory for the Allies.
Thank you, Councillor Myers.
Thank you, Mr. Pym.
I found the picture of the city tax collector. There he is. Doesn't he look like an unpopular man? So, let's move on now. 1946 to 1956, a full decade. William H.C. Bryan is the mayor. The population is 28,491, and I turn it over to Councillor Sheehan.
Thank you very much, City Clerk Pym. Mr. Pym, you said you had 12 children?
12 were born, 4 lived to adulthood.
Wow.
That's true. Wow. Don't laugh. That's very tragic.
That is tragic. That is tragic. I don't know why Councillor Turco's laughing, but I was going to say I finally met somebody who had more children than Mr. and Mrs. Fagan.
Are they here?
But they do live off of Pym.
The Fagans, you have how many? Mrs. Fagan, how many children? 9. All right, stop it right there.
Thank you. Thank you very much. The year is 1946. The movie classic, It's a Wonderful Life, is released. The Montreal Canadiens win the Stanley Cup. A study commissioned in 46 shows that half of the citizens of Sault Ste. Marie receive a paycheck from Algoma Steel. In 1947, the population climbs to 28,944. The ferry James W. Curran begins operation between the Twin Saults. Anne Frank's The Diary of a Young Girl is released. Air Canada's predecessor, Trans-Canada Airlines, begins flights from Kinross Airport, Michigan. In 1948, the population, 29,662. Louis Saint Laurent becomes Prime Minister of Canada on November 15th. Thomas Kennedy is the Premier of Ontario. Clerg Park is dedicated in memory of Francis H. Clerg. The Trixie Hardy Dance School opens. The Fall Fair begins at Memorial Gardens on Labor Day weekend. Hamilton Rodas builds a sawmill at Third Line and Peoples Road. The mill employs 15 to 20 people. The mill was subsequently rebuilt in 1952 and became a veneer plant. In 53, with the addition of a hardwood flooring mill in 55, it was then bought in 60 by Weyerhaeuser Canada. G.W. Martin took over in 1984. The Biltmore Theatre opens at 641 Queen Street East on December 23rd, 1948. In 1949, the Premier of Ontario was Leslie Frost. The first Emmy Awards are handed out, and Rudolph the Red-Nosed Reindeer is born. The post office moves to a larger quarters on the south side of Queen Street. The Memorial Gardens dedication in 1949 was the largest Sioux gathering under one roof, 6,500 people. That was before fire codes and such. 1950 to 1956, Herbert Smell is mayor. In 1950, the population was 31,534. The first self-serve elevator is installed by Otis Elevator in Dallas, Texas. And more importantly, Pointe du Chêne Park opens to the public. War is declared on June 25th, 1950. The first cornerstone is laid for the Pine Street Armory, November 12th. The Plummer Memorial Hospital opens in 1951 on Queen Street. In 1952, King George dies. His daughter becomes Elizabeth II. A new armory opens on Pine Street on January 19th. Prime Minister Saint Laurent attends the official opening. ACR begins its tour train to Agawa Canyon with a whopping 765 visitors in the first year. 7,000 workers are employed at Algoma Steel in 1952. In November, St. Luke's Anglican Cathedral burns. The Albion Hotel is demolished. The third story of the Dawson Block at the corner of Queen and East Street burns. War ends in Korea. Queen Elizabeth's coronation takes place on June 2nd. William Golding's Lord of the Flies and J.R. Tolkien's The Fellowship of the Ring are published in 1954. The revenue for television broadcasters begins to surpass that of radio broadcasters. Highland TV is the first to broadcast television in Sault Ste. Marie. In 1955, Rosa Parks refuses to sit at the back of a bus, breaking Montgomery, Alabama's segregated seating law. In 1955, Albert Einstein dies. A dedication is held at the cenotaph in front of the courthouse with the addition of names from World War II and the Korean War in Sault Ste. Marie. Ferry John D. McPhail begins operation. Three-year expansion program undertaken by the Algoma Steel Corp in 1955. In 1956, St. Mary's Boys College opens by the Basilian Fathers. 1957 to 1959, Walter Harry is mayor. His son, Alexander C. Harry, will become mayor from 1965 to 1968. 1957, John George Diefenbaker is the Prime Minister of Canada. And once again, the Montreal Canadiens win the Stanley Cup. Algoma Steel Corporation transfers the function of public transit to the Sault Ste. Marie Transit Commission. Grocap light ship burnt on December 20th, leaving steel structure blackened and twisted shell. A ship was partly breached down the St. Mary's River at that time. In 1958, the construction of the Sault Federal Airport begins. In 1959, our population grew to 41,484. Fidel Castro assumes power in Cuba. Frank Sinatra wins his first Grammy Award in 1959. The Simpson store is built at Queen and Elgin Street. And Queen Elizabeth and Prince Philip visit Sault Ste. Marie on July 8th. ACR Wellington Street Underpass opens on July 17th of that same year. And in 1959, part of Terrantours Township is annexed by Sault Ste. Marie for a secondary school. And the Allied Arts Council is formed, later renamed Arts Council of Sault Ste. Marie District. Thank you very much, City Clerk Pym.
Thank you, Councillor Sheehan. Jumping now to 1960 through 1964, James L. McIntyre is mayor. He is the youngest person elected mayor of the city, and today he is the oldest living mayor. And one of his councillors for Ward 1 was a gentleman named Terry Murphy. Population of the city. Did you note that in that decade, this population jumped by 10,000 people in one decade? That's the largest jump. Now we're up to 42,497. Councillor Krampadich.
Okay, the year is 1960. I'm 4 years old. I live at 145 Greenfield Drive. And I remember Frank Manzo coming over and talking to my grandparents' house on the corner of Turner Avenue and 2nd Line at that time. John F. Kennedy defeats Richard Nixon in a closely fought presidential race in the USA. Alfred Hitchcock's Psycho terrifies moviegoers, the famous shower scene. Construction begins on the Sault Ste. Marie International Bridge. Mount St. Joseph College is opened by the Sisters of St. Joseph. St. Mary's College Men's Club erects a 12-ton cross on Moffley Hill. It is the Western Hemisphere's tallest illuminated self-supporting cross, believed to be the same area where a cedar cross was raised June 14th, 1671, as part of the French celebration of the founding of Sault Ste. Marie. Highway 17 between Sault Ste. Marie and Wawa is officially opened in September. Parking meters are installed on city streets. 1961, the Sault Airport opens. The first commercial flight lands August 1st in 1961. Vern Merrifield opens a hardware store featuring hard-to-find items. Bowading Collegiate and Vocational School opens, and the International Bridge opens for traffic. In 1962, Marilyn Monroe dies of a drug overdose at age 36. Toronto Maple Leafs win another Stanley Cup. Ferry service to Sault Ste. Marie, Michigan ends. 3 ferries are retired. Agoming, built in 1926. The James W. Curran, built in 1947. And John D. McPhail, built in 1955. The Curran and McPhail are transferred to Lake Ontario to supplement the ferry service between Kingston and Wolfe Island. The Agoming is sold at an auction to local contractor Jack Smell. Construction of a retail strip mall, which becomes known as the Kmart Plaza on Northern Avenue, begins. The city buys the Ermitinger Old Stone House for restoration. The Churchill Plaza opens. 80 acres of land on 4th Line is donated to Arthur A. Wishart for park purposes. The International Bridge is dedicated on May 24th. The cost of construction was $20 million. In 1963, the population is 44,692. The British Secretary of War, John Profumo, resigns in the wake of an affair with Christine Keeler, a teenage showgirl who was also involved with the Soviet naval attaché in June. The Group Health Center opens. John F. Kennedy is assassinated. In 1964, the Welcome Arch on Lower Brock Street is demolished. 1965 to 1968, the Alexander C. Harry is mayor. In 1965, townships of Core and Terrantoris are amalgamated with the city of Sault Ste. Marie. January 1st, 1965, the population grows to 70,052. Councillor Vera Feldin is the first woman to be elected to City Council. City Council passes bylaw allowing stores to remain open 2 evenings a week, Thursday and Friday until 9:30 p.m. All other nights they must close by 7 p.m. The Sault College of Applied Arts and Technology opens as the Sault Ste. Marie Ontario Vocational Center. The Skylark Drive-In opens. We had a lot of fun at the Skylark. And the Sault Drive-In Theater opens. We had a lot of fun at the Sault Drive-In as well. West side of the Great Northern Road. The Biltmore Theater becomes Odeon Biltmore Theater. Fire destroys a curling rink on Gowan Street, and it's on July 3rd, 1965. The YMCA opens on McNabb Street. In 1966, the first Star Trek episode airs. Algoma University College accepts first students. 1967, population is 75,097. The Beatles release Sgt. Pepper's Lonely Hearts Club Band. The Graduate plays at theaters. Core Collegiate and Vocational School opens. Canada celebrates its centennial year. Dr. Alexander Sinclair sells the 216-acre Strathclair farm on Old Garden River Road to the city for $1 for use as a park and recreational site. The main library on East Street opens to mark the country's centennial. Pierre Elliott Trudeau is the Prime Minister of Canada. Martin Luther King is slain in Memphis. 60 Minutes airs on CBS. Fire ruins St. Charles Hotel and Metropolitan Store on November 26. The top 2 stories were destroyed and the roof burned away completely. Cappy's Restaurant and the Algoma Theater, neighboring buildings received site smoke and water damage. Damage estimated in the hundreds of thousands of dollars. Alexander Henry High School opens. The Odeon Biltmore shortens its name to Odeon Theater. And Frank Manzo was elected to councillor as a councillor for Ward 6.
Thank you, Councillor Compadich. And one little note there, on a personal note, I'd like to thank the city for taking such good care of the old stone house, because that was the home my parents David and Pim and his wife bought in 1852 when they moved here for Owen Sound. So it's nice to see my old homestead being kept up so beautifully by the city of Sault Ste. Marie. 1969 to 1971, John R. Rhodes is the mayor, and the population is 75,596 in 1970. Councillor Turco.
Thank you, City Clerk Pim. If you allow me the liberty, Councillor Comprodic forgot 1967. That was the last year that Toronto Maple Leafs won the Stanley Cup. Just a little side note there.
Yes. I've noticed that there's only 4 of you clapping for the Montreal Canadiens,
Yes.
so you should watch yourself in the parking lot on the way out.
Thank you. Who needs a computer? We have you, City Clerk Pim. You mentioned John Rhodes, and
Yes.
it was an honor for me to known John for many years. That was the 1969. We'll talk about 71 in just a little bit here. Sault Technical High School becomes a composite school. The name is changed to Lakeway Collegiate and Vocational School on Wellington. The city establishes Medal of Merit in recognition of outstanding achievement or contributions to the community by groups of or individuals. And we just had our 43rd annual Saturday night already. 1970, many tears were shed. The Beatles break up, including Mr. Manzo. Restored Ermatinger House opens, the old stone house. Bandshell at Bellevue Park named Harry R. Pierce Memorial Bandshell June the 14th in honor of local musician and band leader. 1971, that was the year that I started my full-time radio career, doing the afternoon show, and John Rhodes was doing the morning show at that time on CJIC Radio. Councillor Sheehan, you mentioned that. Bales Tire Building is raised. Marine Museum opens at Bellevue Park. City workers go on strike for 30 days. Doran's Brewery, sold to Canadian breweries. 1972 to 74, Ronald A. Irwin is the mayor. And Cappy's restaurant closes. Everybody talks about Cappy's, right across from the Girl in Red. That's where I started my employment career, Cappy's restaurant, and the rest is history. The old Grand Opera House is torn down. White Pines Collegiate Vocational School opens, 1973. Station Mall opens. The first phase is anchored by Sears, Dominion Grocery Store, and how many of you remember the Big Boy Restaurant? Mm-hmm. Construction of the Civic Center begins on the waterfront, valued $3.3 million. The Sioux Drive-In opens, Councillor Kronpotich. They showed movies? Station Mall Cinema opens, 293 Bay Street. Grandview Hotel is demolished. The old City Hall complex on Queen Street is demolished. 1975 to 1980, Nicholas Turbovich is the mayor. Morley Torgoff's A Good Place to Come From wins the Stephen Leacock Memorial Medal of Humor. The new Civic Center on the waterfront is complete. City receives, Councilor Bunning like this, city received Norgoma ship from the provincial government. Significant construction takes place along the waterfront. The Algoma Steel Men's Club, also known as the Algo Club, in what is now Doc's Restaurant, the Holiday Inn, now the Delta Hotel, Station Tower, Seniors Apartment Building, 615 Bay Street. 1976, construction of the Great Lakes Forest Research Center is complete. The Art Gallery of Algoma opens in the Station Tower. And in 1976, a young man by the name of Joseph M. Fratesi is elected as councillor for Ward 6. 1979, all City of Sault Ste. Marie CUPE workers go on strike from May to September. Orpheum Theatre closes due to concerns of the safety of the ceiling. The theater was demolished later in the year. 1980, the population in Sault Ste. Marie is 80,548. The Art Gallery of Algoma moves to its new location in 1980 at the waterfront at the foot of East. Sault Collegiate Institute, I may remember it closed down and a lot of people were disheartened about that. And in Stephen Budland is elected councillor in Ward 1. Thank you, City Clerk Prim. I wonder why I got the 70s.
Thank you. Thank you, Councillor Turco. And now we move to 1981 through 1985. Donald M. McGregor is mayor. And the population, well, I'll leave that to Councillor Fata to tell us about 1981.
Thank you, Mr. Pim. Population, as you said, 81,355. IBM introduces its first personal computer running the Microsoft Disk Operating System, MS-DOS. Princess Charles marries Lady Diana Spencer. Central Park is renamed Esposito Park in honor of NHL hockey greats Phil and Tony Esposito. Dedication of rebuilt Harry Pierce Kiwanis fan shell at Bellevue Park, July of 1981. 1982, population is 82,902. It's now 15 years since Maple Leafs have won the Stanley Cup. Princess Grace of Monaco, 52, dies of injuries when her car plunges off Mountain Road. Michael Jackson releases Thriller. Sault Ste. Marie Museum moves into the old post office building. The Great Tugboat Race begins at Grocap. One of the founders was Howard Avery. 1983, population peaks, 83,270. Singer Karen Carpenter dies of complications from anorexia nervosa at age 32. More than 125 million viewers tune in to the last episode of MASH. I was one of them. Construction begins on Sault Ste. Marie Horse and Pony Club, Olympic-sized riding arena at Strathclair Farm at a cost of $110,900. Sod turning for the Sioux's $70 million water supply and sewage treatment plant. On October 31st, Soup Kitchen Community Center opens. 1984, population 80,905. I guess it's a slight dip there, right, from 1983. John Turner is the Prime Minister of Canada from June 30th to September 17th, 1984, at which point Brian Mulroney becomes the Prime Minister of Canada. Indian Prime Minister Indira Gandhi is assassinated. The Crosby Show debuts on NBC. The sitcom is widely considered the most popular show of the 1980s. Cambria Mall opens. June 1st, St. Mary's Paper Inc. comes into existence. 1985, Frank Miller is Premier of Ontario for 5 months. Then he is succeeded by David Peterson. Singer Madonna launches her first road show. British scientists report the opening of an enormous hole in the Earth's ozone layer over Antarctica. Ontario Lottery Corporation is ordered by the Premier to move its offices to Sault Ste. Marie from Toronto and to remain indefinitely. Thank you, Councillor Fata. certainly, yes. 1986 to 1996. Hello, Joseph M. Fratesi is mayor. To date, he has been the longest-serving mayor of the city. Councillor Bruni.
Thank you, City Clerk Pym. 1986 Space Shuttle Challenger explodes and killing all 7 aboard. Sadly to say, the Montreal Canadiens did win the Stanley Cup in '86. An 850-meter dike reroutes a portion of St. Mary's Rapids to create fish habitat built at a cost of $1.5 million. It is designed to keep water levels high enough to allow year-round spawning and breeding. A Goma Theater closes, and the Lakeway Collegiate Vocational School also closes. 1987, the population of the city is 80,900. Construction of the expansion of the St. Mary's Paper begins. Terra Hall is destroyed by fire, and the Sioux Drive-In closes. Council Compadre is very sad. 1988, the Pan Am Flight 747 explodes from terrorist bombing crashes in Lockerbie, Scotland, killing all 259 aboard and 11 on ground. Phase 3 of the station mall is completed, and Rick Nero is elected councillor for Ward 4. 1989, Don't Worry, Be Happy, a song by Bobby McFerrin wins the Emmy for the Song of the Year. Skylark Drive-In closes. Council Compadre is very, very sad now. It's the last one. Canadian Bush Plane Heritage Center opens. Odeon Theater closes. Last movie theater on Queen Street. And the Station Mall extension is built. In 1990, Bob Rae is the Premier of Ontario. Victoria House, also known as the Vic, is demolished on January 16th, and I do recall Mr. Butlin was in tears. 1991 population is 79,366. Phase 1 of construction of the Norgoma Marine Park begins. Construction of the Roberta Bondar Pavilion begins. The waterfront walkway along St. Mary's River Drive is complete. Steelton Branch Public Library closes. Cenotaph at the courthouse is restored and rededicated on September 13th. 1992, Sioux native Dr. Roberta Bondar becomes the first woman astronaut and first neurologist in space. Official opening of the Roberta Bondar Place on Foster Drive. 1993, Sioux Greyhounds win the Memorial Cup Championship. Also in 1993, the Toronto Maple Leafs reached the semifinals of the playoffs, and Wayne Gretzky gave a high stick to Doug Gilmour. Montreal did. 1994 opening ceremonies of the opening of the Bondar Pavilion on June 24th. Clock and tower of the old Post Office Museum undergoes renovations. The Ontario Lottery Corporation moves to the city. Construction of the flakeboard plant on Baseline begins. 1995, the Kiwanis Community Theater opens at White Pine Secondary School. In 1996, Mike Zanzosti serves as mayor until Steve Butlin is elected. 1996 to 2000, Stephen Butlin is mayor. Population is 80,054. In 1996, construction of the direct strip mill begins at Algoma Steel. Construction value is $40 million. Transit operators go on strike. Algoma Theater building is vacant. And citizens approve establishment of a casino in answer to a question on the municipal ballot. 1997, population is 75,665. Odeon Theater is used as a bingo hall. Princess Theater is renovated as a bar and dance hall. Sioux Airport is renamed for Roderick Borden Gray, Flying Officer, World War II, recipient of George Cross. Our Sioux own Debbie Amoroso is elected as councillor in Ward 5. In 1998, the Sioux Airport Development Corp. Assumes ownership of the Sault Ste. Marie Airport as part of the government strategy to rid itself of regional airports. In 1999, Casino Sault Ste. Marie, Ontario's first charity casino, opens, and the Phase 2 of the John Rhodes Centre opens. The year 2000, City hosts 2000 Ontario Winter Games. Sault Ste. Marie Museum, Ermington and Clerk National Historical Site, Art Gallery of Algoma, and Canadian Bush Plain Heritage Centre begin partnership known as For Culture. Collegiate Heights School is torn down. Pat Mick is elected councillor for Ward 3. Lou Turco is elected councillor for Ward 4. And Frank Manzo is elected councillor for the 16th time for Ward 6. That is it.
Thank you very much, Councillor Bruni. 2001 to 2010. Oh, John Roswell is mayor, and the population is 74,566. Councillor Mick.
Thank you, Mr. Pym. I guess it's most appropriate that some of us are appealing to the short-term memory people like myself, and we have the most recent years. Originally, when we talked about this, we talked about doing family history. And just as a little diversion from the script here, my great-grandfather, John Scott, came on the passenger ship Monarch from Sarnia up here with his young family. So through the years, our family and the families we married into have collected a lot of history, a lot of writings, a lot of artifacts. And I just thought it was most appropriate today. One of the first things I picked up was the wooden nickel. If people remember the wooden nickel, It was worth 5 cents. You could spend it up until August 7th of 55 of that year. And that year, women were encouraged to make dress in period dress, and very, very many did. And most men over the age of 14 spirited beards, and they were called Brothers of the Brush. So I still have my 5 cents. I can't spend it, but it's invaluable. The next one, going backwards, would be a coin minted for Queen Elizabeth's coronation. And we have lots of different coins, but these ones are, of course, not to be spent. This one here was minted by the city of Sault Ste. Marie, or had minted, and they're presented by the Corporation of the City of Sault Ste. Marie in commemoration of victory in the Second World War, 1939 to 45. So those are just some of those, and in my sewing box, one of the ones I inherited, there was this thimble, and this one says Bonnie Cleaners on it. I have some older metal ones, but there's that. And some of the coins were kept in a container, and at the time it said this company was over 50 years old, and this has to be at least another 50. Dodd's kidney pills. And I think some, for backache and tired feeling. And Mr. Pym, I think your wife thought that was pregnancy, not kidneys. One other thing from the sewing kit, or one of the kits, my sisters thought this was a crochet hook, but my grandmother taught me to crochet, not very well, but she did try. And this is not a crochet hook. And it's not, someone else said, well, my grandmother was a tatter. I said, no, you didn't tat with this either. And we did upholstery work, and we had much bigger things than this to pull springs. It's actually a hook to tighten your laces in the old boots. So that's this one. So we'll go back to the short-term memory. 2001. Frank Manzo was elected councillor for Ward 6 in a by-election following the death of Councillor Tom Austin. Tom Austin had been elected with Lou and I the previous year, and something he had looked forward to for many, many years was being a member of council. And unfortunately, he was only in that seat for a year. The Bay Street extension is completed. The Ermatinger-Clergue Heritage Site becomes Ermatinger-Clergue National Historic Site. The Algoma Hotel at the corner of Bruce and Queen Streets is demolished. It had originally been known as Bowlby's Hall, built in the late 1800s by Conrad Knapp. Blockhouse opened at Ermatinger-Clergue site. The new Davy Home opens on 3rd Line East, which is now Ward 3. 2003, the McNabb Street Jail closes. And I remember clippings of the last hanging that was performed there way back when. And I think there were 5 or 6 people buried on that site. Stephen Butland, former mayor, is elected as a councillor for Ward 1. Terry Sheehan is elected councillor for Ward 2. 2004, on June 1st, 2004, the city becomes non-smoking. And the night that that was passed at council, Brady Irwin moved the resolution, I seconded it. When Brady went out to his car, he had a window smashed. And this is only 8 years ago, so we did have a little bit of criminal activity going on then, too. Steel City Kiwanis Club disbands. The movie Looking for Angelina is filmed in the city. The Hub cigar store closes after nearly 100 years, and I think most of us remember the Hub cigar store and didn't realize it had been around that long. The Memorial Gardens is demolished. Then there was a groundbreaking ceremony for new sports complex held on Wednesday, June 15, 2005. The Windsor Park Retirement Residence is donated to Algoma University by Dr. Lou Lukenda. In 2006, members of the 49th Field Regiment and 26th Service Battalion leave for Afghanistan. They were Captain Neil Stalker, Captain Grant Iaconis, Master Corporal John Baumhoff, Bombardier Pierre Marceau, Master Bombardier Mike Marscadelli, Master Bombardier Randy Olive, and Bombardier Brian Williams. The Algoma Theater is demolished. Then the Steelback Center opens officially September 29th, 2006. The new truck route is dedicated in memory of the late MP Carmen Provenzano and named Carmen's Way. There was a rededication of the Memorial Tower and Memorial Square takes place, and that took place on October 29th. And then that fall, Susan Myers is elected for council for Ward 2. Frank Fata is elected councillor for Ward 3. Thank you, Mr. Pym.
Thank you, Councillor May. Oh.
Oh, it says, pardon me, I know it's Ward 5. It says 4 in the script, sorry.
Your short-term memory is getting worse. All right, 2007, John Roswell begins his third term as mayor. The population is 74,948, and my mustache is falling off. Councillor Christian.
Thank you, Mr. Pym.
You're welcome.
Algoma Steel is purchased by SR Global Limited for $1.89 billion. St. Mary's Paper Company is rescued from closure by a group of local investors. The waterfront boardwalk extends as far as the Art Gallery of Algoma. Clerk Park is also expanded. Algoma University College receives approval for independence from Laurentian University. The Lock City Grand Theatre opens on the site of the old Odeon Theatre at 641 Queen Street East. On August 23rd, a groundbreaking ceremony is held for a new hospital on Great Northern Road. 2008, Cuban President Fidel Castro, who temporarily handed power to his brother Raul in July of 2006, when he fell ill, permanently steps down after 49 years in power. CAO Fratesi is seen on Cuban beaches each year since. At a news conference in Baghdad, a reporter for El Baghdadiya, a Cairo-based, I'm not making this up. This isn't part of the shtick. Based satellite television network hurls his shoe at President Bush and calls him a dog. New Emergency Services Center opens on Old Garden River Road. Algoma Steel is renamed to SR Steel Algoma, Inc. The OPP opens a new 12,000 square foot forensics identification building July 18th. The Steelback Center is renamed SR Center. SR Steel Algoma has paid $1.5 million for the naming rights for the center. Algoma Community Care Hospice opens officially on September the 15th. 2009, the H1N1 virus is a global pandemic. Master Corporal Scott Vernelli, first Sioux soldier, is killed in Afghanistan on March 20th. Cedar Heights Community Park renamed Eric Neisted Memorial Park in honor of the OPP officer Eric Neisted, who lost his life in the line of duty. The city purchases 4 acres of land on Gooley Avenue for a proposed new community center complex. Max China Store closes after 78 years in business. The city holds a flag-raising ceremony October the 18th at Clerk Park, marking 25 countries established in Sault Ste. Marie. Slumdog Millionaire wins an Academy Award for Best Picture. In 2010, a 7.0 magnitude earthquake devastates Haiti. The 2010 Winter Olympics open in Vancouver. Sergeant John Wayne Fott of Sault Ste. Marie is killed in action south of Kandahar City, Afghanistan, January 15th, 2010. The Windsor Park Retirement Residence closes May 31st. Algoma University turns the Windsor Park into a student residence. Roman Catholic Bishop Plouffe announced that 4 churches in the city will be closed by year end: Blessed Sacrament, Our Lady of Mount Carmel, St. Joseph the Worker, and St. Andrew Babola. Lower section of East Street south of Bay Street renamed Ken Danby Way, June 22nd. Cornwall Building, originally the Cornwall Hotel, at the corner of Queen and Spring Streets, is demolished. Mary's Restaurant closes after 65 years. On August 19th, the remains of the Batchewana First Nation individuals held at the Smithsonian Museum in Washington, D.C. are returned after 160 years. The remains are to come across the St. Mary's River in a birch bark canoe to Bellevue Park and taken to Gooley River Mission Cemetery for burial. Fern's Hardware closes after 49 years in business. Boston Motors closes after 78 years in business. David Johnston, who grew up in Sault Ste. Marie, is appointed Canada's 28th Governor General. Mayor John Roswell passes away while in office. Of particular importance in the city's history, Paul Christian is elected councillor for Ward 1. Of slightly lesser significance, he is joined by other councillors: Brian Watkins, councillor for Ward 3, Rick Nero, councillor for Ward 4, Marchie Bruni, councillor for Ward 5, and Joe Kropotich, councillor for Ward 6, and Debbie Amoroso becomes the first woman elected mayor. During the inauguration ceremonies, Councillor Manzo declares that he's related to Councillor Christian. 2011 population is 75,141. The Arab Spring movement begins in Tunisia when demonstrators take to the streets to protest chronic unemployment and police brutality. On March 11th, a powerful earthquake hits Japan, resulting in a tsunami and consequent nuclear accidents. Kate Middleton marries Prince William in a lavish royal wedding at Westminster Abbey in London, England. The new Sault Area Hospital opens on Great Northern Road. The waterfront walkway extends to Simpson Street. The Hub Trail is dedicated in memory of former Mayor John Roswell, who passed away the previous year. Parkland adjacent to the Clerk Park, also named in Mayor Roswell's honor. Replica of the Rotary Welcome Arch, constructed at original location on Russ Ramsey Way, Lower Brock Street, is unveiled after the Community Day Parade. Finally, Superior Heights opens, a new secondary school replacing Bowading and Sir James Dunn for students in grades 7 through 12.
Thank you, Councillor Christian. Ladies and gentlemen, how about a round of applause for all of your councillors for taking us through the years. Madam Mayor, I turn the floor over to you.
Well, I believe that next we are going to have some remarks from our Chief Operating Officer and former Mayor, Mr. Joseph Fertizzi.
Thank you, Madam Mayor and members of Council, Mr. Pym and the rest of City staff, ladies and gentlemen. I have some brief comments to make, and I'm honored that I've been given this opportunity. As you can well imagine, the municipal staff that worked for the city in 1912 was very small in comparison to the staff that we have now. And the reason for that is that there were far less areas of responsibility that the municipality was asked to look after. As far as we can make out from the records, there were about 7 non-union positions, including that held by Mr. Pym, who's with us this afternoon as our clerk. There was a treasurer, there was a tax collector, a chief sanitary inspector, and the fire and police chiefs. And if there were a sunshine list back in 1912, I think what I've been provided would be it. And it has the signature of Mr. Pym. And I think I know why the tax collector had troubled eyes in that photograph, Mr. Pym, it's because you made more money than him back in 1912. And these are annual salaries that are disclosed. The clerk made $1,300 per year, the treasurer $1,400, the police magistrate $1,800, the city's engineer $2,160, the assessor made $950, the tax collector only made $1,000.
Oh,
So these were the published salaries of the most senior of staff. The fire chief made $1,200, and the assistant made $840, and I'm happy to see both here. And if you forget about the amounts, but just do the relative positioning, things really are about the same as they are today. But it's interesting to note that those were the salaries that were paid back then. Wages were measured in pennies per hour, and departments like legal, human resources, community services, social services didn't even exist at that point in time. These came along later as cities were asked to take on more and more responsibility. The position of Chief Administrative Officer that I currently occupy wasn't even created until 1962. And at that time, the longtime treasurer, William J. McMeekin, who, like myself, had been a former councillor and a mayor, was appointed as the city's first administrator. Oddly enough, Mr. McMeekin was appointed as the Chief Administrative Officer exactly 50 years ago today, on April the 16th, 1962. Since Mr. McMeekin's tenure, there have been 3 other Chief Administrative Officers. Donald Evans served from 1968 to 1980. Alan Jackson served from 1981 to 1995, and yours truly has served for more than 16 years since. The city of Sault Ste. Marie, in my opinion, has been very well served by the many staff that have been employed over the last 100 years. I'm especially pleased that we're recognizing our current and former staff, as well as current and former elected officials at a special come-and-go reception that's being held here on Wednesday this week from 4:30 to 7:30 at the Civic Center. And I would encourage all past and present employees and elected officials to please attend and help make this truly a great celebration. I would also like to take this opportunity to mention the terrific displays that have been created by our civic departments and agencies, and that are either in the lobby or in the third floor meeting rooms on display as part of the open houses that are being held today, tomorrow, and going to the end of the week as we celebrate. These displays are available from 10 until 2, and they will be staffed by people who will try and provide whatever information people are looking for. As we've heard from all of those who have presented this evening, we have much to celebrate and be proud of here in Sault Ste. Marie because of our long and rich history, a history that has been made at the hands of many good people over the last 100 years. Thank you, Mr. Pym, and thank you, Madam Mayor, for allowing me a few brief comments.
Thank you, Mr. Fertese. As you are well aware of, there was a contest that has been run through the Celebrate 100 and Porter Airlines called Bring Your Family and Friends Home. The contest was successful in attracting 1,678 responses, which was managed for us by Lucidia. I would like to thank Tourism Sault Ste. Marie and Porter Airlines for their contributions towards the contest. The Celebrate 100 Committee and City Council supported this initiative as it was a great way to showcase the events that are taking place during the celebration year. The Tourism Sault Ste. Marie Porter Airlines Celebrate 100 contest winner is, I feel like I'm on the red carpet or what at the Academy Awards or something. Oh, and it's really a sealed envelope and everything. I'm sorry, but that's too high-tech for me. I already know who it is because it's on my cheat sheet. So, but to make it official, the winner is, and I'm not sure I'm saying this right, and so I'm really happy the person is in Ottawa and can't hear me massacre their name. Ajeti Nazir. Nazir is the winner. Tourism Sault Ste. Marie will be in contact with that individual tomorrow. So on behalf of City Council and in closing, we take the privilege of sitting in municipal office very seriously. We serve you, our community, our friends, and our families with the best intentions and make decisions with clear minds and honest conscience. Just like those that have served over the last 10 decades, good decisions are not always the most popular or the easiest to implement. But as history has shown, good decisions have positioned Sault Ste. Marie in Ontario, in Canada, and in the world as a dynamic place to live, work, and play. We are getting more exposure as a top-notch educators and have been long recognized as a premier tourist destination. That's because we have the best food, the best talents, and we are very great hosts, and above all, we know how to play. As we reflect over the history told this evening, we can see that the Soo has produced many great and accomplished individuals that we can look forward to, or look towards for inspiration. The Sioux's bright stars are people that include scholars, doctors, nurses, lawyers, scientists, novelists, poets, activists, teachers, soldiers, an astronaut, athletes, and politicians, to name a few. There is much that we can learn from these role models. As a result of the struggles and challenges that our ancestors had to endure, we live in a more tolerant time. The biggest change from 100 years ago is that we live in a faster, more sophisticated, and technological world, and as a result, we are always on the go. Some of the best memories are created by sharing life's simple pleasures. We need to be reminded from time to time of the simple things, and we need to slow down and enjoy what is around us and hold close those that are important to us. Many organizations in our community are also celebrating significant milestones and anniversaries this year. I'm personally looking forward to participating in the upcoming events and sharing a wonderful year of celebration with the residents and visitors of our great city. Like those distinguished leaders before us, we are here to serve the residents of Sault Ste. Marie. On behalf of City Council, we will continue to build on strong foundations that were laid over the last 100 years. I would like to thank those individuals that have served on council before us and give recognition to their great accomplishments that have benefited this remarkable community that we call home. I see some of you here tonight, and thank you for being here. This is a year of celebration, and as we look back fondly on memories made and look forward to new adventures, I encourage everyone to get out and participate. We are going to have a good time. I would like to thank everyone, including the Celebrate 100 team, the City Clerk's office, city staff, our town crier, Kim Forbes and the museum staff, the Royal Sovereign Sea Cadets Band, and the 1912 City Clerk, Charles James Pinn, portrayed by our very own and well-behaved Tim Murphy. I thank you all for your involvement in this evening's commemoration, and what a wonderful way to honor the last 100 years. Thank you for those of you who are here this evening to join us. I hope you've enjoyed this presentation, and we wish you nothing but the best for our residents and are looking forward to a prosperous future. Thank you for being here this evening. And happy birthday, Sault Ste. Marie.
Madam Mayor, members of council, I'd like to thank City Clerk Pim for joining us tonight and helping me out. I have a motion by our oldest councillor, Councillor Manzo, and seconded by our youngest councillor, Councillor Sheehan, that the 100th anniversary meeting of the Council of the City of Sault Ste. Marie now be adjourned.
All in favor? Opposed? It's carried. Thank you all for coming this evening.